That was another performance by pianist Nina Howe. Chuck Swindoll once said, life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And while growing up at home with a loving family would have been the ideal, that was not the case for our next guest. Her name is Tanisha Esman Ledgister, and she's a former ward of the state, now in the legal foray. She joins us to share why state care was an opportunity for her. Morning, Tanisha. Welcome to Smile Jamaica. It's morning time.
Good morning, Delia. Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking with us and for sharing your story. Let's start, first of all, with how did you end up in state care, if you don't mind sharing that with us.
Okay, I'm sure. Well, it happened after my mother left my brother and I with an elderly couple. And the couple, well, the wife died. And based on our age, the husband was not able to care for two young children. And he decided that it would be best if we were placed with the state. Mm-hmm. And so that's how it started.
That's how it started. What was that transition like for you? Must have been difficult as a young child, but still managing to be successful at the CXC level and in other things. Tell me about living in state care. What was that experience like?
Well, initially it was a bit scary. Having never had the experience before, you'd have only gone by what you heard. Mm-hmm. And so initially I was told that I would be beaten up and, all of those things. But my first facility was the Maxfield Park Children's Home. Mm-hmm. And I must say it was it was different, but it was great. Obviously, you'd be living in a group setting. You don't necessarily have your own room or your own individual space. I suspect it may have changed since, but at the time when I entered, that was how it was.
Yeah.
I then went to the National Children's Home, where I spent most of my years, and I also spent some time at the Pringle Home in St. Mary.
Still managing to be successful at the CXC level, at the Cape level. What would have been that motivation for you, Tanisha, to say, despite the fact that I'm in state care, I'm going to do well in school?
Well, it didn't start it out very easy, but after a while, obviously, after getting to your teenage years, I became aware of my reality. There were some aspects of my reality, obviously, that I wouldn't be able to change, but I knew from I was very young what I didn't want in life and what I wouldn't stand for. And the fact that I didn't have that family support, it meant that I had to work extremely hard to ensure that I succeed, or even if I didn't, I came very close to it. So I think one of my fear of um, ending up in particular situations made me work even harder, because I didn't see myself surviving certain situations, and
Yeah,
especially as a female.
yeah, yeah. Wow, wow. We still have, and it's interesting that you said you heard so many things would have happened to you when you went to state care, because we still have a lot of misconceptions about it. And so I feel like sometimes, and I'm glad when people like you speak up, because I feel like sometimes children are afraid to say they were in state care because of how people are going to react. Did that affect you in any way, socially, emotionally, just being in state care?
Well, yes, it did. And especially as a teenager, I went to regular high school. And as a protocol, the bus would take you to school. And when you get out of the bus, there would be persons looking at you. And persons normally have this idea that once you're in state care, it's because you were a bad child, or it's because you are uncontrollable, or you can't. It's always something negative. Um, and they seem to think that you are the worst segment of society, or amongst the worst set of children. And so I had cases where persons would tease me and say, "How is it that you're from a children's home?" Or I remember one experience where I was given a JanSport bag at the time in the 90s, and another child saw me with the bag and pulled it away and said, "How is it that it's children's home you come from and we're in JanSport? I must teeth it." And so those kind of experience, sometimes when persons are ignorant of the facilities or they have no idea, they seem to build their own conception, and oftentimes it's not true.
Yeah. You're married with your own daughters, your own family. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that as well. And just, I don't know, like, do you wake up sometime and say, I'm Tanisha, look at all that I am, despite, this is who I am?
Well, probably I should, but oftentimes I I don't focus on the fact that I was raised in state care. I'm very thankful though for the experience and the opportunities it should have brought forward, because I've always said to my colleagues and other persons who are involved in my life, had it not been state care, I probably would have been a completely different person. I'd probably be struggling. I imagine all the things that could have happened
Yeah.
if I never had the opportunity, and all those persons being a part of my life.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget it, obviously, but it's not, I don't focus on my past. I'm always looking forward.
And one of the things you're looking forward to is heading into the legal freight. Tell me about that.
Well, it's been a long time coming. chose to do an MBA a few years ago because I felt that was the most appropriate. But really and truly, I wanted to do law and I delayed it. Then I started my family, and it just seemed as though law school was out of the picture. But the truth is, COVID is happening now, and even though it has so many negative connotations, it also brought some opportunities because now I've been given the option of studying law online, and it is way more flexible than say a year or two ago. And so I'm just really happy for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to just going through the next couple of years,
Yeah.
completing the course.
Tanisha, if anyone else knows it, you do, in terms of words and what they mean and the power they have when people will say, I see some people say, you're not past nothing. And as you said, guys, you can't get that. I must teeth it. There are children now who are watching. Some are already in state care. Some may need to go, but they're afraid to go. What are your words to them? What are your words of encouragement?
You know, each person's experience is different. And I think that my words to any young person, any children that are in the facilities now who needs the encouragement, I just encourage you to be resilient, to be confident, to just believe in yourself and put aside what other persons may think about you or what other persons may want to say, because their affirmation, whilst it may count in some instances, it doesn't always count. You determine your destiny, and you should never give anyone the power to restrict your ability. The sky is the limit. Beyond the sky is the limit, as a matter of fact. And once you work hard, you will achieve.
Listen, I'm always so proud of people like you, Tanisha, that have gone into the system, that have made it work, and that have been so successful, because you will motivate a child somewhere that needs it to say, I too can, and they can enter. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope that someone will at least find a little word or something encouraging from what I just shared.
I'm sure they found a lot. Tanisha Esman Ledgister, former ward of the state, aspiring attorney at law. I know she's going to get there, so look out for that name. Still to come, we hear about the Child Diversion Program. But first, here's the second edition of News in 5.